In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Our Lord, we trust in you, and to you we turn, and to you is the final destination. O God, bless Muhammad, the messenger of God. May God bless him and grant him peace. God willing, today we will talk about a new series of veterinary diseases, which are diseases of zoonotic origin. As these diseases infect animals and then infect humans, and it is difficult to recover from them. Today's disease is bird plague, a type of influenza. Watch until the end to beware of this dangerous disease. Today, we will not have enough time to talk about the disease in full, as it will be in 2 parts. Let us begin after the break, with God's blessing.
الذي خلقني فهو يهدين والذي هو يطعمني ويسقين وإذا مرضت فهو يشفين والذي يميتني ثم يحيين والذي أطمع أن يغفر لي خطيئتي يوم الدين.
Newcastle disease in French, pseudopeste aviaire. It is a disease that affects birds and is one of the diseases shared between animals and humans, and is caused by paramyxovirus type 1. The rate of infection and mortality varies dramatically depending on the serotype of the virus, as well as the strength of the immune system and the health condition of the animal, as well as other surrounding factors. In the past, Newcastle disease, bird flu, and chicken cholera, on the other hand, were confused under the name bird plague, and in reality an accurate diagnosis that distinguishes between them could only be achieved through laboratory tests. There are new effective tests that are in the marketing process. History of illness. Veterinarians believed that the cause of the infection was bacterial, as in the case of plague bird flu. In 1901, Sontani and his student Savonazzi noticed that the causative agent of this disease, which they believed to be influenza, penetrates porous soil filtration and cannot be grown in an artificial medium like bacteria. So they concluded that it was an agent different from bacteria and smaller in size than them. Shortly after the discovery of the influenza virus for avian influenza, Cranfeld described Newcastle disease in 1926 during an epidemic that wiped out Dutch Indian farms, before Doyle described the disease as Newcastle upon Tyne, making the two the first to differ in their description of avian influenza. The Newcastle disease virus was not discovered until 1955 and was classified in the paramyxovirus family and the avulavirus genus in French and English, avulavirus. Newcastle disease must be reported to veterinarians when a focus of infection appears, just like influenza, and it is monitored by the World Organization for Animal Health. Causative factor. The paramyxovirus family consists of 9 species, and the first type is Newcastle disease virus, PMV1 in English, paramyxovirus 1. The size of the virus ranges between 120 and 300 nanometers, often in the range of 180 nanometers. Newcastle disease virus is a negative-sense single-stranded RNA virus. It is surrounded by an envelope that contains hemagglutinin. The virus has the property of agglutination, that is, attachment to red blood cells, and it contains the hemolysin enzyme hemolysin. The lifespan of the virus. The virus is very resistant to ambient temperature and remains infectious for a long time, several months in bird droppings, 2 to 3 months in the ground in a barn, 7 to 8 months in a contaminated eggshell, 2 years or more for uncooked and frozen bird meat. Nursery. The duration of incubation ranges from 4 to 6 days, according to statistics from the World Organization for Animal Health. From 2 to 15 days according to other sources, such as the Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
Breeds. Newcastle disease virus strains, like influenza, are classified according to their virulence. And 3 strains can be distinguished. The ferocious strain, It is the most lethal strain to birds and causes major deaths and the emergence of epidemics. This strain can be divided into 3 types according to the place where it attacks and reproduces, causing distinct symptoms. Neurological type. It appears in acute and subacute cases and causes neurological symptoms of the disease. Respiratory type. It usually appears for a short period of time, followed by visceral or neurological involvement. And the respiratory type usually appears in a subacute or mild form. The virus tends to infect the larynx, bronchi, and the rest of the respiratory system. And birds suffer from shortness of breath during infection. Visceral type. It appears in acute and subacute cases, and the virus tends to affect the digestive system, especially the duodenum and alimentary stomach. This type leads to the death of birds before any symptoms appear. This type has appeared in some Arab countries since 1974. Moderately virulent strain. This strain is capable of causing minor disease symptoms and is used to prepare vaccines. They are natural, such as the Rokin breed. Prepared in a laboratory. This is done by weakening a virulent strain, such as the Komarov strain or the Katzir strain. Weak strain. This strain is unable to cause any disease symptoms and is therefore used as a vaccine for immunization. Examples of weak strains include the Hitcher B1 strain and the Lasota strain. Use it as a biological weapon. Newcastle disease virus was one of several pathogens investigated by the United States as a potential biological weapon before the U.S. government halted the biological weapons program. Poultry, especially chicken, which is most infected before ducks, followed by geese. This disease potentially affects all domestic and wild birds. Turkey chickens are affected by the disease, which leads to the death of young birds, and its severity decreases at older ages. Pigeons and other game can be infected by the virus. For example, the French Ministry of Agriculture called 35,000 partridges and 20,000 pheasants in the Loire-Atlantique region on July 20th. 2005 after symptoms of the disease appeared on the 18th of the same month. Parrots and some other wild birds, they can carry the virus and play the role of a reservoir for it several months to a year of shedding the virus for parrots. In Japan, some parrot breeding pens and some exotic birds were destroyed. How the disease spreads. It is likely that the natural virus is spread by migratory birds. But infection in poultry can be traced back to how husbandry methods are applied. The Canadian Food Inspection Station, like most experts, estimates that the primary source of spread of the virus is people working in the poultry farming sector, including buyers and distributors of livestock feed, as the resistant virus is easily transmitted on their clothes, in their shoes, on their tools, or with their cars. In rich countries, the virus is being monitored in wild animals, where it appears less problematic than in farm animals. Wild birds can be more susceptible to the virus by leaching from barn cleaning water and especially by spreading contaminated guano on agricultural fields where many birds feed. Proper fertilization with organic manure can reduce the problem. This rarely happens, in which case guano, which is rich in nutrients, should be mixed with herbs and sawdust and the compost pile made separate from the birds. Source of the virus. The source is related to the organ targeted by the virus, which varies depending on the strain of the virus. In addition to the immune status and history, and perhaps the genetic stock of the infected bird, the virus is shed in bronchial secretions and waste, all parts of the carcass. Viruses are shed throughout the incubation period and during a variable period during the recovery period, which ranges from a few days to 2 weeks in total, and it is rare for it to reach more than this. But for reasons that are not well known, some birds, such as parrots in Latin, Psittacidae, shed viruses in intermittent periods, over a period ranging from a few months to a year or more.